Rebellious Studio presents the Mind Body Podcast with your host, Maria Angelova. Hey, Rebels, welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. Today is my absolute pleasure to welcome here and to be with somebody who has been very influential in my life, one of my friends, mentors, and somebody who inspires me. We were just sitting here chatting, and I'm like, we should be doing this during this podcast, but Dr. G, or Dr. Guy Gunter, who will tell us a little bit about himself by telling us 3 words and a little bit of a backstory of who you are, Dr. G.
3 words?
3 words, only 3. Can you do
Only
that?
3.
Only 3.
I am, let's see.
Through your...
You should have prepared me for this.
I don't like to prepare you for this.
3 words. Consider the mystery.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And I started out as a microbiologist. I worked at Emory University, and went to Purdue University, and was doing the science thing. And I started teaching science at the chiropractic college, and became a chiropractor, but wanting to take all that I knew and putting it together. I went studied a lot of Chinese medicine, and the journey of health is about trying to determine what's blocking health. I mean, health is natural, and the mystery of how we work and what's happening inside us is fascinating, and determining what you can do about it and how you can be responsible for correcting whatever has gone wrong has been the focus of my little practice for the last 40 years.
Your little practice.
Yeah.
What he does is amazing. And I say Dr. G is like an encyclopedia of, you can ask him any question and he'll give you the multidimensional response, and you just sit and blink in awe, because I don't know how he remembers everything that he does. I have told him this before, but he really has an absolutely complete view of the body from so many different dimensions. I mean, the microbiologist, the chiropractic, the Chinese medicine. You have studied other sciences too.
The emotions.
The emotional implications and how that impacts the body.
Yeah, and that it's all connected.
100%.
And to have someone come in who is complaining of neck pain, and in the discussion you find out that she's discovered she doesn't love her husband anymore. You can't fix her neck pain until you get her to understand that she needs a divorce, or she needs to come to peace with the fact that she's fallen out of love. And sometimes that's not what they want to hear.
Right.
But you have to be honest and lead them on their path, and see what you can do to have them find clarity as to what's going on in their own lives, and then be responsible. In our society, responsibility has been defined as obligation.
Mm-hmm.
You have made an error, and you are now suffering for that error, and you must accept the blame, and you must feel bad about yourself. And responsibility was originally nailed by Fritz Perls in the 60s. I'm old enough to remember the 60s. When he said that responsibility is the ability to respond. Mm. And it's not a play on words. You have to determine what the appropriate response is to anything that goes on in your life. If you have body pain or dysfunction, what's the right response to it? You know, is it to take a bunch of drugs that suppress your symptoms, or is it to look for an answer as to why you're experiencing this, and finding somebody that makes you feel they can help you? The proper response is not just going to someone and having an answer that is unsatisfying, and then you return over and over again for another unsatisfying answer. You are capable of noticing when somebody is telling you the truth and when somebody is leading you in a way that makes sense. And that's your responsibility for yourself. And if you can be responsible for yourself and choose the right responses moment by moment, day by day, your life blossoms and you allow change in the most positive ways. Taking care of people for pain or taking care of people for visceral dysfunction, all the little things that I wind up doing, those are the steps. But the goal is that they find themselves, because ultimately you're loving, you're happy, and you're healthy. And if you're not experiencing any of those three, there's a blockage. And it's a mystery as to how it got there, but it's a mystery that can be unraveled.
Yeah. And I think to what you're saying, I think the word that pops up through G is awareness.
It begins with attention, moves to awareness.
Yeah.
And particularly in American society, we have confused bravery with courage. We exalt bravery, and bravery does not have responsibility wrapped up in it. Bravery is sacrificing yourself for others in a very straightforward fashion, overcoming your fears and making these sacrifices. And that's pretty good for society, but it's pretty lousy for the guy that's got to be brave. Courage comes from the heart. That's why that's the cur in courage. It's from the Latin cardio. And when you reach into your heart for strength and you reach into who you know yourself to be, or in the difference in courage and bravery in war is that instead of mindlessly running towards danger, you feel the love and the comradeship around you, and that propels you to perform an act of courage. And oddly enough, when you are using courage, you are more successful.
And I would like to tie courage to something we were just talking about, and you mentioned it already, but the personal responsibility. Let's take it in this example, in the case of your well-being, your wellness, being in charge of identifying the cause rather than, nowadays it's easy to pop a pill to subdue the symptoms and move forward, because who has time to process emotions or think about emotions? And you also brought up response, which I like to distinguish that from react.
Yeah.
Because we have become a very reactive society where we don't take that pause and that breath and take into account that awareness and respond courageously from the heart with compassion and understanding and support.
Caring about yourself. It's another example of society expecting you to sacrifice, teaching you to sacrifice, give up your time, give up your health so that you can perform whatever it is you're supposed to do. And your first duty is to yourself. It's like, It's like when you're in the airplane and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first and then put it on your child. As a parent, you're like, oh no, my child's getting it first. Well, if you pass out, your child's unlikely to put the oxygen mask on you. You have to start out with what is at the basis of your life, and it's you.
It's you.
And you should care for yourself. You should have compassion for yourself. You don't have to wallow in self-pity, because self-pity is an anesthetic. If you're feeling sorry for yourself, you don't get anything done. If you blame, you don't get anything done. And boy, do we teach particularly women to blame themselves.
Mhm.
And you can't enjoy your life because you have, oh my goodness, I have failed at this, or I haven't done this, or my husband's unhappy. What have I done wrong? Maybe there are things that you need to address. You have to pay attention. You have to become aware of them. But to do it from a point of compassion,
Mhm.
as opposed to a point of I screwed up and I have to come
Make
up with
up
some
for it.
sort of unpleasant attitude to make it all work.
Punishment.
Yeah. Or it's all his fault.
But that's blame. That goes back to blame.
Goes back to blame, and what can you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you can change is you.
Oh, that is so powerful. The only thing you can change is you.
Yeah, there is no moment in time except the present you can live in. You can't live in the future, you can't live in the past. You can draw from both, but you have to integrate it. Each day is each day. And the one thing that is common to every day is that you are there.
Yeah.
You're all you got. And as you love yourself and strengthen yourself, you're able to provide that for all around you. There's a wonder that has shown up since coronavirus, which is the study of happiness and the studies on the effects of kindness. And they are incredible.
Mhm.
Happiness is contagious.
Yeah.
It's the fulfillment of your needs. How do you be happy? You fulfill your needs. You have a need to be loving. You have a need to know yourself. You have a need to take care of your children. If you're handling your needs, you will feel happiness. And kindness, if you are presenting kindness, your brain changes. It starts functioning in higher ways. And good things have a tendency to start showing up because the kindness is opening you to more positive opportunities. You're no longer defending yourself against an enemy universe.
Yeah.
But also, everyone you're kind to benefits, their brains increase too. Their brains
Ripple
expand.
effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kindness starts with being kind to yourself. Getting up in the morning and looking at the size of your hips in the mirror and just excoriating yourself because you think they're the size of a school bus is self-blame, and self-punishment. It just doesn't get you anywhere. If you're unhappy with your body, look for a way to fix it. And one of the most powerful ways, and I was very surprised at this, because I'm old, I guess.
You're wise.
One of the most powerful ways to fix your body is Pilates.
Oh.
And possibly not going to a Pilates factory where everybody is doing Pilates in a real
Mechanical.
inefficient way. It's sort of like 30 years ago, I began to do yoga again. I had done it in my 20s, and getting up towards 50, I thought I might rejoin. And going to a yoga studio where there is a 25-year-old who has turned yoga into standing aerobics. We're going to hold the warrior pose for 15 minutes. And I was taught by people when you finished, you were energetic, you were calm, your body felt great. And then it gradually became some kind of harsh exercise. And Pilates, having patients come in to see me who had been to their Pilates class and they had pulled muscles in their core because there wasn't somebody standing there watching them do it and say, well, you're doing everything more on one side than another. It's not, you need someone to help you really develop your understanding of the basics, and then you can proceed. But it's an amazing activity, and I was introduced to real Pilates through my dear friend Maria here, who as an American male, I resist any woman telling me what to do. And so I would spend an hour trying to be patient with the fact that this Bulgarian sergeant is barking at me about pull this foot in and raise that shoulder back. And once I got over my ego, and I began to actually attain it, I was very, very pleased with the fact that it increases your energy. It makes your acupuncture system work better. It's just a remarkable system.
Something very important, and thank you so much for the shout out, Dr. G, but I was just having this conversation with another Pilates teacher last week in terms of teaching approaches. And the one thing that I personally have a problem with the commercialization is that we're taking Pilates and we're trying to fit it into the current definition of fitness, instead of teaching people what Pilates is and why it starts slow and why it starts gentle and why it starts with awareness. And ultimately, the goal of Pilates is to make you strong. I always tell people, I'll make you the strongest you have ever been. I don't know about the skinniest, right? Because that's has other factors. But we're no longer satisfied by just being strong. We have to kill ourselves. We have to push. And we were actually also talking with you now about the push versus flow energy and the impact that has on the youthening of the body and the youthening of the mind. But yeah, Pilates is not, and I can say that because I came from the world of fitness of what's your heart rate monitor, you gotta sweat, you gotta burn this many calories, to Pilates. And it was a mind shift change for me as well. But you're very right, it's very different. And we have to preserve the power of Pilates because it is powerful. Like you said, it impacts the body now and the mind in an incredible way.
Well, an observation I made over the last 40 years was that my hard body patients who were doing all of the heavy weights and the runners, they're running 40 miles a week, 50 miles a week, they weren't aging well. They were having a lot of joint injuries, and they would come in saying, I don't know, what can I do about this? I said, well, you could lift less weight. And it's like I told them to sell one of their children. They just would fall apart. I can't lift less weight. I worked so hard to get to this point. I said, yeah, well, you're so damn old, you can't support it with your joints. I'll put joint supports on them. No. Look at the people who are looking healthy and are doing things in their latter years. What exercise are they doing? As an old hippie, yoga was the big thing. And all of my peers that were practicing yoga and dance and I do Tai Chi, we don't age, not like everybody else. And you maintaining your energy, maintaining your strength, and maintaining your flexibility are one of the keys to slowing your aging.
I'm so glad that you brought flexibility, because part of the education I do with people is it's not just about strength. Strength is great. You do want to be strong, but you want to have balance in your body and flexibility. And I tie the flexibility of the body with the flexibility of the mind, because they go hand in hand. The control that you have over your mind, responsiveness versus reactiveness, control over how you move versus just randomly throwing your arms and legs around, like I call it flipping and flopping. There is a difference. And then the push energy versus the flow, right? So many times people would see an exercise, say, well, let me do it. And they're like, it's like, no, we're going to take a nice breath and allow the breath to deepen where you're going with the exercise, right?
No, that's true. But with awareness, there is intent.
Yes.
I am
intentional movement.
I'm going to make this work, and trying to, try and dance, contracting all of your muscles at the same time. You don't get anywhere. You dance by feeling the music. Yeah. If you're actually listening to music, I'm old enough to have a question about modern music. But back in my day, there was actually waltzing, and to be able to feel, that was the first really great dance that I learned as a young man, because it didn't require much except being able to count to 3 and feel the swirl of the music. And in martial arts, feeling the movement, the flow, was very important. And the intent is not to be hard or strong. You are strong. It's to allow your strength to express itself, to flow.
I love that. To express your, yes, I love that. Allow your strength to express itself. I like that.
In the Tao Te Ching, which is the book of the Taoists, it says that when a person dies, their body is stiff and hard, but when they're born, they are soft and flexible and capable of living a lifetime. So suppleness, softness, yes, flexibility allows the flow of life. And as the flow of life diminishes, you become hard and stuck. And I can tell you, as a man in his 70s, that you will experience stiffness, and you could take a bunch of pills and try and knock the inflammation out, or you can get up and do some really nice flowing movements, a lot of breathing, and suddenly you're young again.
Yeah.
And that tells you where you need to go to find yourself, to find, because that's a responsibility thing. Getting up in the morning, and how am I going to respond? I'm going to have 4 cups of coffee and 12 Motrin, and I'll be better in a couple of hours.
For a short period of time.
But if you can getting up and deciding, okay, I'm going to go out and breathe and dance until I'm no longer stiff.
Yeah.
And then I got to stand there and do my Pilates once I've gotten the stiffness taken care of. And while it's been, thanks to COVID, 3 years since I had a session with Maria, I still hear her voice as I'm standing there trying to get myself.
Engage your core.
Get my
Stay
core.
tall.
Oh, God.
I love it. That's what I do. All right. Let's get us close to wrapping up by tell us, what's your definition of rebellious?
My definition of rebellious.
Yes.
Rebellious is deciding your own path. There is the idea of rebelling against the consensus that's out there, right? But rebelling doesn't get you what you want. rebelling allows you to break free of the constraints, but then you have to decide what to do with it. I mean, you can see we have a lot of rebellion now in a variety of political contexts, and it doesn't achieve anything because it's expressing itself violently or thoughtlessly or without awareness. Once you decide to rebel, once you decide to be your own person, you have to decide who that person is, and you have to decide who that person should become.
Who do you want to become? Yeah. Any last words of wisdom? Any inspirational quotes? Anything you want to share with our rebels?
Trust yourself.
Oh my gosh, my mindset topic tonight is trust.
Trust.
I love it.
Finding someone who's trustworthy. Trustworthiness has disappeared from our society. And there's many different ways of going about trust, but ultimately, the first person you need to be able to trust is you. And if you're not sure you can trust yourself, spend some attention and try and figure out why. Is it just because your mother told you you were worthless and you can't possibly be trusted? Or is it because you know that you're not making the choices that support yourself? Love yourself, trust yourself.
I love it. Dr. G, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on the website, which is HealWorks, HealWorks.net. And I'm here in Atlanta. We have a phone number. You can just Google Guy T. Gunter, DC, and this face pops up. Sometimes it looks a little younger than it does right now.
Dr. G, thank you so much. This was, as always, inspirational, motivational. You guys can hopefully see why I love this man and why he has been such an inspiration to me. I thank you for listening. Send any questions that you have, and of course, make it a rebellious one.
Ciao.
Can't get enough of those rebellious conversations? Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share with your friends.